Everyone learns in different ways. Everyone knows that everyone learns in different ways. This is most often divided up by Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. You have your linguistic learners, your logical mathematical learners, musical learners, bodily kinesthetic learners, spatial learners, interpersonal learners, and naturalistic learners. In elementary school, students experience as many different intelligences as teachers have time to fit in. They learn math skills, for example, by listening, by doing, by playing with blocks, working in groups, working alone, and talking it out. In elementary school, students are taught to learn their way and focus on their style, and for the most part, it works. Students do well. In Kentucky, 54.7% of students read at grade level, almost 20% above the national average, and 49.2% are proficient in math. Logically, understanding and proficiency should increase as students learn more. So, why then do scores drop when students go through middle school? This question does not have an easy answer. In order to get a clear picture of the problem, we need to look at the education system as it is now versus what the education system needs to be. Education is essentially the establishing of a foundation and then building atop that foundation. According to Dr. Amy Howell, a gifted educator at Henderson Elementary School, education is more than preparing kids for their next grade level or next level of education or even for their career. Education should prepare students for the rest of their lives. The most important part of education is teaching students not just what the problems are, but how to solve them. So why then does the U.S. still stand so dismally in international education rankings? 29th in math, 22nd in science, and 19th in reading. What's important to note is that these statistics come from middle and high school students. At the elementary school level, an overwhelming majority of students perform at or even above grade level, a whopping 83%. But by the time students reach 8th grade, overall proficiency decreases by nearly 10%. Ideally and logically, as mentioned before, these numbers should increase as the knowledge understood increases. However, this isn't happening. Our education system isn't truly educating our students. So what is a true education? In short, not this. Now, this is not at all to say that every aspect of education is bad. In elementary school, students are afforded the opportunity to learn the way that suits them best. They're given options and encouraged to seize them. By middle school, options are taken away. There's really only one way to learn: listen, take notes, memorize, and repeat. According to Ben Orlin of The Atlantic, if you wanted to design a system of testing rote to short-term memory, you'd struggle to improve upon the classic model, the time-pressured single-unit in-class exam. By the end of middle school, successful students realize the flaws and use them to their advantage. Rather than actually learning the material presented to them, they cram. As Orlin says, for efficient students, it's pretty clear what to do. Memorize the necessary facts in the 10 minutes before class, and forget them in the 10 minutes after. The main problem with this system of education is that education shouldn't be systematic at all. It should be systemic, teaching students to make connections between facts rather than just the facts themselves. Learning styles previous education had appealed to are merely tossed away and lie dormant until it is, to put it dramatically, too late. By high school, students are either armed with the knowledge not to better their education, but to beat the system, or with the burden of facing academic failure. In theory, would either of these stem from what is conceived as a quality education? Students pick up that despite what is absorbed in elementary school, the only way to learn in school is precisely the opposite: not to learn. This is commonly referred to as the procedural school of thought. As defined by Burns and Wasik, educational authors, procedural knowledge is knowing how to take steps to get to certain goals. This implies a set technique, which in the eyes of the school system is efficient and a logical way to educate the masses. The question is this a truly effective way to convey honest-to-goodness knowledge to a variety of students with a variety of learning styles? When examined, we can see that it's absolutely not. According to Sylvan Learning Centers, approximately 15%, or more than 1/6, of all students are at least partially kinesthetic or hands-on learners, while only approximately 3% of all curriculum caters to kinesthetic learning, which means that 97% of all school curriculum neglects the main learning style of more than 1/6 of all students. Enter this school's brother, the conceptual school of thought, which builds foundations on a more diverse base. Literacy educator Elfreda Herbert describes this as knowledge that is rich in relationships. It can be taught as a connected web of knowledge, a network in which the linking relationships are as prominent as the discrete pieces of information. Said relationships pervade the individual facts and propositions so that small pieces of information are worked to some network. Basically, a wide pool of information is presented and students are free to process as they wish. This system is beneficial to all students, regardless of their individual learning style. Biologically speaking, the brain, the learning and processing center of the body, is essentially a series of interconnected hubs of information transmission called neurons. The more information is learned, especially at a young age, the more neuron relationships develop. Learning connected information fosters the development of more neuron connections. This epiphenomenon is why learning relationships is such a beneficial way to learn, which would make sense and would benefit a large majority of students. So, naturally, any education beyond elementary school neglects or tries and fails to address this technique. It's been observed that in high school, in subjects aside from mathematics, there is a tentative attempt to reintroduce more conceptual ideas. However, students have been conditioned to believe that there is only one right way to do and to learn things, and that following that way will bring them the most success. The most intelligent students, the one with the most to gain from an education, are smart enough to know that truly learning will only lead to failure. Education is about so much more than being at school. It's about not just gaining knowledge, but using it as well, and learning from life. As Julie Sebring of Henderson Elementary School stated, essentially, most students experience 3 distinct stages of their educational career: elementary school, middle school, and high school. And within those 3 distinct stages, they experience 3 separate learning philosophies. Elementary school encourages conceptual learning and fosters the formation of connections while catering to a myriad of learning styles. Middle school allows for only a very limited variety of learning styles and teaches students not to learn but to temporarily memorize. When students reach high school, they are afforded more opportunities to learn how they choose, but middle school has conditioned them such that they no longer know how to take advantage of these opportunities. In order for our education system to reach its full potential, we need to acknowledge that school shouldn't just feed students information, it should teach students to educate themselves. The best way to do this is truly to go back to the basics and to take a lesson from elementary schools. Remember that education is, in the words of Henry Butler Yeats, not just the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.